Hi Leeds, my name is hazelmillichamp. I'm the host of this podcast, the Light on Leeds podcast, which is a podcast that shines a light on all of the amazing people in Leeds doing brilliant things. This week's guest is Alex Palmer. He is the artistic director at Riptide. Since 2014, Riptide have been making work that places audiences at the heart of the experience, and they use innovative storytelling and digital tech to do this. Have a listen and see what you think. For this episode of Light on Leeds, I have Alex Palmer come to speak to me. Hello, Alex.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me remotely, but joining me anyway. Alex, you are the artistic director at Riptide. Can you tell us a bit about what is Riptide?
Yeah, so Riptide are a site sympathetic theatre company, and what that basically means is we don't work in traditional theatre buildings,
Yeah.
but we take over very different spaces. So that can be anything from the city centre, kind of on street level. It can be taking over abandoned warehouses, underground nightclubs, hotel rooms, and we've over lockdown we've explored the idea of performances coming to you. So making something for your own living room, for example.
Wow. How does
Yeah.
that work?
So it comes to you via the post. So that's the first thing that happens. So you'll get a letter that will say something like, "This is day one of the experience. Anything you see online or someone you might meet." It's been less meeting for obvious reasons,
Oh, you've just dropped out a bit there,
but
Alex.
they might be part of the performance. So you kind of the idea was kind of formed way back when I saw the Truman Show.
Okay.
Like, kind of what an amazing experience if we can give someone something like that. So yeah, so it happens in and around your life, and yeah, it's a bit of an adventure for, and it's for one audience member at a time, I should say. So you do it on your own.
Okay, so you just dropped out a little bit when you were telling me about the letter. So somebody gets a letter, and what will the letter say?
So the letter
Oh, I think you
says,
dropped out.
"This is day one." Oh no. I'll
No, I
let
can
me
hear
move
you now.
downstairs. So so the letter says, hold on, I'll move. Sorry, Hazel.
No worries.
I've moved to be more quiet, but if you don't mind a bit of background, I think.
No, I don't mind.
Okay. So the letter comes through your door, and it says, "This is day one, and anyone you meet from now, either in person or online, could be part of your performance."
Ah,
So suddenly, what we're doing is kind of making the world around you the performance. And there are special interactions. There's a bit of kind of internet sleuthing and puzzles, and real locations that turn into kind of theatre sets, if you like, or so it's quite difficult to explain because it happens over a durational period of time. So it happens over
right.
several weeks, and it happens for one audience member at a time. So you buy a ticket as an individual, and you kind of have this idea that you're the center of this experience.
That sounds amazing. I bet people really love that.
Yeah, I mean, we've gone more online, so it's gotten away from. We had some beautiful moments of people. It's like, in films, it's two people meet on a park bench. They don't know each other, but they know a kind of code word or something, and a briefcase is opened and a package is given across, and then someone walks away. It's that kind of very filmic moment that we are giving audience members.
And they're essentially in the performance.
Exactly, and what they decide to do determines what the narrative does. So there are kind of different endings possible. There are different kind of there are different choices to be made, and they dictate what happens. It's a little bit like playing a video game, I think, but in
Yeah.
real life, where you're the kind of you're the main character.
Or like a sort of choose your own adventure book where you'd have to choose which ending you were going to go for.
Exactly that, and I always read those as a kid, so I think that's kind of uh, influenced it. And I kind of, to give a kind of background, I trained as a theatre director,
Yeah.
and kind of found as an audience member I wanted to have that sort of choice, or I didn't really like the kind of two-dimensionalness of it, if that makes sense. I kind of
Yeah.
found it quite boring, and some people do theatre very well, but I think, if I'm speaking very honestly, I find a lot of theatre very boring. Um, um, so, and I think that's because I was more curious. Like, I wanted to be on stage, and I wanted to see the changing rooms, and I wanted to see the lighting people and right at the back, and
Yeah. All the
um,
nuts and bolts.
yeah, and it's quite confined, isn't it? But I don't know what your opinion is of theatre, whether you have the same thing.
I'm quite lucky. I get to see quite a bit of theatre because I write for a local newspaper,
Mm,
and they have a scheme because we're based in South Leeds. They have a scheme where they'll be offered free tickets by a theatre company, and it's trying to sort of get people in our area into going to the theatre, which is quite difficult, I think, because I think if you've never been there before, it can feel quite daunting, like you don't know how to behave or how you're supposed to dress, or sometimes how you're supposed to feel about things that have been put on.
definitely,
And I mean, even with the free ticket scheme, we ask people to sort of write a review in return. But because it's quite difficult to get people to go, I quite often get to go myself and go and write the review, which is lovely. But yeah, I love theatre, but I can see what you mean, and it can be very, I suppose, because it's such sort of a historic art form, it's kind of gone down certain avenues. But yeah, I think your take on it sounds really exciting.
definitely. I totally agree with you. And you look at kind of, well, theatre is very wound up in the class system, right? So the history of
Yeah,
theatre is that that's why certain tickets are worth more money than because they're the better seats. It's entrenched in that industry.
yeah,
I think what we're trying to do with Riptide is move away from that kind of traditional theatre, and kind of say that to have those types of experience, it can be for anyone, and it actually doesn't need to cost a lot. So, um, so our last piece, which was called Project Intimacy, was £15, and it was a 2 week long thing. So it was kind of £1 a day kind of thing.
wow,
Um, so yeah, I mean, we could talk all day about kind of who is theatre for, but I think what we've shown is that, or what I found out actually from doing it, is that there is there are loads of people wanting this experience who probably wouldn't feel the most comfortable walking into Leeds Grand Theatre, for example.
yeah,
Um, but they enjoy escape rooms, or they like video games, or they listen to podcasts, or they kind of they get culture in other ways.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's really exciting. That um, and I think something that Leeds is quite open to it, actually, these different types of experiences.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. So is this something that you studied from sort of school and college age?
Only from college upwards, really. Until college, I wanted to be a chef. So, I was kind of I'd kind of read all of Gordon Ramsay's autobiographies. I was like, I'm gonna set up
You
my
like
own
to swear a
restaurant.
lot?
Yeah, but I would like rush home to watch Ready Steady Cook. Like, I was obsessed. Um, like the best moment for me was when they opened the bag, and they were talking through what kind of recipes they could make with these ingredients. So I think that was kind of yeah, that's my childhood. um, And then I went to see a my dad's a lecturer at the University of Leeds, and he teaches light. And um, I went to see one of his students' pieces, and it was Pandora's Box, and it was a kind of immersive show. So audience are let loose into a environment. There's no kind of sit down seats, and
Mm.
you were taken by the hand by a woman in a white wig with big blue eyelashes, and a kind of white skirt, and you were led around this piece. And I think for me, I'd never really seen anything like it. And I think the fact that she took me by the hand, to the touch involved, there was lots of eye contact. So it was very much like I couldn't hide, which was very daunting to begin with. But then as soon as you
Yeah,
get used to that, it becomes this kind of amazing experience that's just for you.
yeah,
um, Rather than you're one of many sat in an auditorium in the dark and it doesn't really matter who you are.
yeah,
So that was kind of a big moment for me, and a kind of shift into theatre and thinking, oh, okay, this is what theatre could be. Um, and then I kind of went a step further, because that was in a kind of theatre building ish, kind of black box theatre building. Um, and then I was thinking, okay, well, what happens if theatre happens on the street or in an abandoned warehouse, or where else can these things happen, and how does it change those experiences?
yeah. I could totally see where you're coming from, and the other thing as well is that, like you're saying, you were led by the hand through an experience. It becomes just so much more personal, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
it's not so much that you're watching something that's put on for you where you sort of think, oh, like I said, that thing about how am I supposed to feel about this, and like how are other people, and what was meant by this. Whereas
Mm,
the form of theatre that you're talking about, it's just so personal, and like you said, it's kind of about the Truman Show thing. You're part of it. It's your experience, which I think is fascinating.
yeah, you're totally right. One of the things that we do as a company as well is, when you buy a ticket from us, we will send you most of the experiences. We will send you a questionnaire. So we get your name and details and postal address and that kind of thing if we need to send anything in the post. But then it starts going into kind of, okay, where would you like to go on a Saturday night for drinks? What's your favorite cocktail? What's your favorite chocolate bar? Um, do you support any sports teams? Do you What's your relationship like with your mother? Are you close to your family? So it's kind of a real range of questions, from like personal likes into kind of the more deep and meaningful stuff. So
Yeah,
we get a really broad range of, or we get a really wide uh, range of answers to kind of know who you are as an audience member. Whereas a traditional theatre, whoever they may be, don't know any of that.
yeah,
Um, and actually, I should say, if you're putting on Romeo and Juliet, you don't need to know who your audience is, because you're just doing that thing.
yeah,
Um, but for when we're doing something like Project Intimacy, which was um, a real personal experience, we needed to know who the people were and what their values and ethics were.
yeah,
Um, so Project Intimacy was a 2 week long experience where you got paired up with another stranger. It was completely anonymous,
yeah,
and every day you got sent a new task or conversation starter or um, thing to do, and you would talk with your partner about this thing, and your relationship would grow from there. And it was all based upon, we made it for the kind of lockdown, and it was based upon kind of combating loneliness, um, kind of promoting compassion and kindness in a time of kind of uh, well, not very nice time for a lot of people, was it? So
yeah. A great need for all those things in that time.
absolutely. So it's kind of weird to pinpoint what Riptide do, because we do those kind of Truman Show things, but we also I wouldn't say Project Intimacy was especially theatre. It was more of a kind of digital experience. We're just using our ability to kind of curate an experience or to tell a story, and then
Yeah.
making, yeah.
Did you get much feedback from people about Project Intimacy and how they found it all?
Yeah, honestly, I've been making work for kind of 6-7 years. It was the most rewarding thing I've ever done.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Um, and we got audiences from Australia, from Japan, from South Korea, from
Wow.
America, Brazil,
That-
Norway. We loads of people did it, and connected with, like, it had a kind of international reach, which was really amazing. But I think it was set up because I knew so many people who were isolating on their own,
yeah,
and I was thinking, what are you doing in that scenario? Like, where are you? The kind of ability to, or even the possibility of meeting a stranger in a bar or having a conversation in a cafe or with your bin man. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
it just completely went, didn't it? Overnight, it was just like
did.
completely gone. Um, so we kind of set up an experience to to allow people to exercise that social muscle again, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really great.
Oh, fantastic. And so, I mean, that's a great thing to do as well, because obviously theatre, sort of traditional theatre, well, everything really was affected massively, wasn't it, by COVID, and still is being. So I think I found it really fascinating talking to people and finding, people are just so resilient, aren't they? Something comes along as crazy as that, like a once in a lifetime awful event. But people have been so imaginative about taking whatever it is they do, not just thinking, oh, well, we can't do this anymore because of COVID and then just crumbling. But people have
Mm.
been so imaginative with perhaps what they were already doing or adapting what they were doing to help people. Yeah, I found that really uplifting.
Yeah, me too. I think for us it was more born out of necessity as well, like, being an independent company
Yeah,
who who don't receive central funding, from kind of any sort of funding body. We've got to apply based on the projects we do,
yeah,
um, and I think in that sense, I think of myself as a bit of an entrepreneur as well, and a bit of a kind of head of a startup company almost,
yeah,
that kind of mentality. So yeah, it was more like, okay, well, how are we going to solve this, and what can we do with the resources we have? And
yeah,
I don't know, if you know Slung Low, which are another
yeah.
theatre
Of course, I
company.
do know Slum Law. Yes.
Yeah, so in the same way that they were amazing over lockdown, with, kind of, they changed their whole organisation to kind of, become a food bank, didn't they? So,
Yeah,
which kind of the mobilisation of logistics and people and vehicles is just amazing. So I think it's just, yeah, I totally agree with you. Very, very inspiring what people can do against a kind of crisis, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And I think Slum Law, to me, have sort of, in a way, a similar kind of ethos that we were talking about, as in, the work in a working man's club, and
Mm,
you can go there and see all sorts of different kinds of performances, and it's pay as you feel. And I think that the way that they present things and where they are and everything, that's again to me sort of taking theatre out of that traditional, perhaps stuffy or elitist, buildings. And yeah, I feel like, and because it's in the centre of Holbeck, which is like a very working class area, I feel like people are, and because of all the work they do anyway, and because they have the cultural college and things like that, I think that it sort of changes how you perceive theatre, which
100%.
which is what you're doing as well. Like to people who perhaps would be a little bit nervous or
100%. Yeah.
worried that they weren't going to understand what they were saying. Yeah, I think it's fantastic work that you're doing, Alex. So now that things, well, you've got to be cautious, you see. This episode, I'm wondering whether to still call it Corona Bloody Virus Extraordinary Episodes, which I began when all this started. But you still feel a little bit like, I know we're supposed to have had the big opening up, but it still feels very tentative.
Mm.
And has that made it difficult for you to plan any sort of ideas and concepts that you're thinking of for the future?
Um, so short answer is no, not really. We've been quite cautious. So our next big thing in person will be in 2023.
Right.
Um, so it gives us a kind of year and a bit to really make that amazing.
Hmm.
And I'm hoping by then things have gone back to kind of normal. Um, in the meantime, we've been making digital stuff, bit digital work. So we have an app out at the minute
Oh,
called
brilliant.
Sonder, and Sonder is the realization that um, random passers-by are living a equally vivid life as your own.
Hmm.
That kind of it's a it's like people watching. It's the realizing that what whenever you've kind of looked out of a window in a cafe and just gone, oh, I wonder what they're doing today, or um, wonder what their life is like.
Yeah.
So it's a GPS app that takes you on a journey through Leeds. Starts at the train station and takes you to the river and back again. Um, and it's basically like Pokemon Go but for theatre, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So locations pop up on a map. You go to those locations, and then the scene happens. It's all headphones kind of thing, and we're using binaural 360 sound, which is surround sound. So the narrator will say, "Sit down on this bench," and it will come out of the left ear as if they're sitting next to you.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, it's a really cool technology, and I think it just goes back to that sense of like putting the audience at the center of things. You feel like they're talking to you um, rather than it just being recorded in headphones. You feel like they're actually sitting down next to you. Um, and the piece is about you and another person in this kind of fictional relationship. So the narrator will say, "Remember when we did this here?" Or "Remember when we had that first date in this restaurant?" And you're standing outside the restaurant. And obviously, you haven't done that. But because it casts you as that other person, you start empathizing with the character that you are. You start questioning. There's a bit in it that goes, "I can't believe you did that." So there's a bit, it's, "Oh, did I do that?"
What did I do?
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit playful. But it's also we've had loads of people do it, and the feedback has been it's just a really nice walk. If nothing else, it's really nice to be out in the city again and walking and listening to a kind of nice thing. It's got really lovely ambient music, which has been composed by two Leeds-based musicians who graduated the College of Music, and it's written by a poet as well who lived in Leeds. So it's very much kind of made by the people of Leeds for the city.
That's
It's
good.
very
That's
good.
such a great idea. So you've got that going on in the background, and then you're thinking about 2023. Is that because you'll be feeding into the Leeds City of Culture?
Hopefully, we're in conversations with the programming team at the moment. And the idea for that one is a kind of big, large scale taking over a kind of large industrial venue. And in my head, I'm looking at a space with kind of multiple floors, big big installation, um, where it's going to act as a bit of a nightclub. I think
Yeah.
there will be music and there'll be a bar and there'll be dancing, but interdispersed there'll be other magical happenings, I guess.
Oh, it sounds absolutely intriguing. I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm sure you don't want to say too much before you release your details, but yeah, that sounds just intriguing.
Yeah, I think there's I mean, talking about like the nightclub scene in Leeds, there's definitely like the established places that you would go for like a general night out, and then there's a kind of step up from that is kind of like a themed night out where you might have a certain theme of the night,
Yeah.
and then for I'm kind of wanted to go one step further and go, okay, well, it feels like a nightclub, but there's this kind of other underworld that you might be taken by the hand by an actor who um, gives you a one-on-one performance, or you might end up uh, in a really amazing conversation in the smoking area, for example, and it turns out that you're actually speaking to an actor who turns out to be one of the main characters, or whatever it is. We haven't really devised it yet, but it's that sort of feeling that anyone you meet could be another audience member, could be an actor, could be anyone.
It sounds great, but when you're planning these things, does it sometimes, because you, like you said, sort of the individual is kind of part of the performance, it's sort of immersive. Sometimes do things happen or people react in ways that you weren't expecting, or things go in a different direction than you might have imagined?
All the time.
And is that what keeps it sort of fascinating?
Yeah, and because especially for working with actors, when we rehearse stuff like that, you kind of block out general things like, okay, we need this scene to be in this space. But then when you get there on the night and all of the audience are in the space that you've said, you've just got to adapt.
Yeah.
Um, so it really keeps you on your toes, and I think it also keeps the performance fresher.
Yeah.
Um, in
It's
terms,
never
there's a
going to
lot
be
of
exactly the same.
say again.
It's never going to be exactly the same for everybody.
Exactly, and that, for me, that's what makes it magical.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's a lot of considerations, and we try and kind of test out, and we try and be really awful audience members. We try and work through all of the different possibilities, but yeah, there's
There are
always there's
always
always
more.
something.
Alex, have you always lived in Leeds?
I'm originally from just outside Huddersfield, but I've lived in Leeds for kind of 6 years now. Um,
That means that you're definitely qualified to answer the three questions that I ask every guest on the podcast. The first being, what would you say is great about the city of Leeds?
Leeds is Leeds is a really vibrant city. I think it speaks over 170 languages. It is a mix of lots of different types of people who are, I think, open to a lot of different experiences.
Yeah,
And I think it's a really great city that if you're wanting to test out an idea, whether that's a new cafe, a new business plan, a new theatre company, it's a really good training ground for, and I think quite open to that type of thing.
yeah, yeah, perfect for you.
Yeah, amazing. And there's it's a very kind of safe is the wrong word, but it's there is room for people who have got new and crazy ideas.
Definitely. I mean, when I started doing this podcast, I thought I've been doing it for 2 years, and I thought eventually I'll run out of people. You know what I mean? I'll just have asked. I'll have talked to everybody, but it's it never stops. There's always amazing things going on. It makes me prouder and prouder to be part of the city because, like you say, there's just so many things going on, and they're all really imaginative and it feels like there's something for everybody, which I really like.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you had to pick something that you think is not so great about the city, what would you choose?
That's a difficult one. I think speaking very specifically about the arts in Leeds, I think we can do better to support emerging kind of artists, whether
Yeah,
whether they're dancers or directors or actors or designers. I think especially in that period, that really difficult period after you've left kind of uni or college, and you're trying to get into the industries in some way.
yeah,
Um, it's that kind of awful thing of you need experience to get the experience,
yeah, I know. Yeah, that's
and yeah, I think that's been really. that was really tricky for us, and we as Riptide actually make a point of offering paid placements for that type of kind of recent graduates or kind of people wanting to get into the industry.
That's great.
We actually make a big point of making those available just because it's so difficult.
Yeah, it's terrible, that thing, isn't it, about you can't get experience, but how are you supposed to get the experience if nobody ever gives you a chance?
Exactly.
And I'm sure there's lots of stuff that people could, be able to go and volunteer for free, but it's a bit like that whole intern system, isn't it? You know what I mean? If you don't have parents who can financially support you to start your career without getting paid, then you're not going to get into that arena.
100%, and that is one of the big problems, I think, with the industry at the minute, and something that we've recognised, and we're moving to a model where we can fit more placements in and kind of allow you to come on board and be paid and learn, and also it kind of ties into our kind of idea with audiences of like putting audiences at the center. In a placement, we don't just offer generic placements. We will tailor it to the individual. So we'll
Oh,
have a sit
that's
down and
fantastic. Yeah,
yeah,
that's great. It's brilliant that you can do that.
yeah.
And if somebody had been a resident of Leeds for a very long time, would you be able to tell them about a hidden gem, somewhere that you think they may never have heard of?
Ooh, um, I've got a couple. They're all kind of so my main go to, and something somewhere I will always show someone who's visiting, is a restaurant called Stutzi.
All right, I don't think I know that.
It's it's a Italian restaurant, um, and so I think it's short for Stuzzacini,
Okay.
um, which is basically like Italian tapas.
Oh, sounds
Um,
perfect.
they do some amazing, and like I think probably the best food in Leeds. Um, if you're a bit more flashy, maybe got a big birthday coming around the corner, I would highly recommend Man Behind the Curtain as a kind of restaurant. I think it's the Michelin star restaurant.
Yeah.
It's a bit spenny, but
My son worked there for a while.
yeah, I mean
Before
it's
he went off to
amazing.
university, yeah, and he had a great time working there.
I had a kind of I went there for my partner's 30th, and had a big realization of like everything is black and white apart from the food. Like it is theater for food.
Yeah,
Um, it's amazing. Like everything from like all the waiters and waitresses wear black and white, all the walls are grey, all the plates are black, or everything is
yeah.
monochrome. And then these amazing vibrant dishes come out. Um, and then my last kind of hidden gem would be Dough Hut,
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
which is just by Trinity. Best coffee, best donuts, amazing.
Oh, well, that's a great three for people to go out and try. And I don't think we've actually ever had anybody mention any of those three, so well done.
They're all kind of city centre. I realise they're all city centre, but I did live in city centre for kind of 5 years, so that's probably
Yeah, well,
why.
they're easily reachable for everybody.
Yeah.
And Alex, what will you be doing with the rest of your day today?
I'm going to take the dog out for a walk. Um, I am. We're organising this 2023 um, project, which needs fundraising. So it's a lot of funding bids, a lot of kind of organisational stuff, which is something that you might not see. You might come and see this show, but it takes an awful lot of work to
Oh,
get to
gosh,
that
yeah.
stage. And I'm also finishing my carbon literacy. So that is so Riptide have pledged to go carbon neutral. Um,
Okay.
so we're doing all of the kind of learning about carbon, which feels a little bit like going back to school,
Yeah.
but super important and super kind of if we can make all the shows and all of our activities carbon neutral, I think that's a really important thing for me.
Yeah, it'd be a great achievement. So I will put lots of links in the podcast notes so that people can check out everything that you're doing and look at the apps on there and check out your website and see all your projects that you've done previously. And thank you so much for speaking to me, Alex. I hope to get to meet you in real life one of these days. You never know.
Thank you so much. There'll be a ticket in the post for you.
Oh, lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed talking to Alex from Riptide. They just sound like a great company, and I would love to be involved in one of their theatre adventures. Sounds absolutely fascinating, and I will definitely be checking out the app that Alex mentioned, Sonder. Just sounds right up my alley. The song for this week's episode that we're featuring is by the wonderful Carmen McClean, who sent me the most beautiful track. It's called Lost and Found. It's out on the 30th of July, and as usual, you'll be able to click through and see all of the links to her amazing work and everything that Alex and Riptide are doing in the podcast notes. In the meantime, stay safe, look after each other, and enjoy this bit of opening up that we've got in a careful way. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
What's happening in this great city? We'll tell you. But wait a minute. Here in the lost and found, she holds me close, wraps her arms around me and won't let go. She holds me close for the night. Safe in the lost and found, I feel the softness and it's all around me. We've made our home in the sheets alone for the night. Home is where her heart beats warm and slow. Soon all my wounds pain me in gold, gold. It's gone in the lost and found. A hand of mine intertwined and bound by the yellow comfort, never lost in light. And home is where her heart beats warm and slow. Soon all my wounds pain me in gold, gold. 'Cause home is where her heart beats warm and slow. Soothe all my wounds, pain me in gold, 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 gold.